Alright, so we're going to do this one story here from the Treasured Tales of Childhood All-Time Favorites. We've been kind of skipping around, but I've decided I'm going to go ahead and do all the stories from it. This is volume 4 in these all-time favorites, published by Southwestern. It was given to us by a family friend, so it's been pretty well loved. The Treasured Tales of Childhood All-Time Favorites were put together by Barbara Simons and Ruth Rooney, published by the Southwestern Company in Nashville, Tennessee. And this was published in 1974, so it's got a little bit of an age on it. The contents is 7 stories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories. And we've read Little Red Riding Hood, The 3 Little Bears, Puss in Boots, and The Gingerbread Man. I'm going to go ahead and do Sleeping Beauty today. Looks like, let's see here, where was Sleeping Beauty from? Kitty Cat's making some noise back there. Let's see if it'll say. Well, here she is asleeping. So, as the Wren McNally with the Roman numerals on it. It looks actually really kind of Disney classic, the feel here. I bet you it's kind of, maybe they're mutually inspired. Sleeping Beauty. Alright. Alright, so Sleeping Beauty. Illustrated by Elizabeth Webb. She's done a lot of the illustrations in these series. Miranda McNally and Company's the publisher. And this is probably our prince on his white steed. This is a really good horse. Its head's very beautiful, and it's got good lines and shapes. This one looks like I think it was a dressage, is what they call it. But it's a pretty horse. Alright, so let's go ahead and read it. Should be pretty similar to a story you know. Look at the castle entrance to the feast. Oop. Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen who had long wished for a child. And when one day a sweet daughter was born to them, the king was so happy that he gave a great christening feast. As godmothers for his little daughter, he asked the 7 good fairies in the kingdom. The one bad-tempered fairy was not invited. Uh-oh. I think she's got little, like, pointy antennae, and we already can tell. Look at the bug eyes on that bug. That is an unhappy dragonfly. After the christening, there was a splendid feast. Before each fairy was placed an emerald plate, like a clover leaf, set with diamond dewdrops. Well, that's pretty fancy. Suddenly, the one uninvited fairy rode into the hall on a dragonfly, muttering threats. Oh, the fairies must be very tiny, so I guess an emerald plate, like a clover leaf, must be very tiny. So, oh, she's very angry. She was not invited. She was snubbed. Oh, look at them all. They're all so pastel. So there's blue and yellow and green and purple and pink. And it looks like a different blue. And she's in black. Oh, no wonder they don't like her. And they all have very fancy set up hair. And she's got her hair curled back. Now the fairies, as was their custom, began to give their gifts to the princess. The youngest gave her beauty, the next wit, that means she was smart, the third grace, the fourth virtue, the fifth a lovely voice, the sixth a smile to win all hearts. Then the uninvited, bad-tempered fairy cried out, "The king's daughter in her rosebud youth shall prick her hand with a spindle and fall down dead." Ooh. See, she's got all the sparkles to go with her, too. She's angry. With the poor little baby. It's kind of pointy for the edges of her little baby, but, you know, it's a drawing. Everybody started to cry out. But then the seventh fairy popped up from behind the cradle and said, "Be comforted, O king and queen. My gift is still to come. I cannot undo entirely what this unkind fairy has done. Your daughter will prick her hand with the spindle, but instead of dying, she will sink into a deep sleep which will last 100 years. From that sleep, when her dream is over, a king's son shall waken her." Ooh, a king's son, huh? Okay. Look, everybody's like, "Oh no! Oh no!" Even the baby's like, "What?" Yet the king hoped to save his dear child from the threatened evil. He had his heralds proclaim that no one in all the country should have a spindle in the house. So they're going to have to import all their thread. Goodness, that is going to be expensive. One day, when the princess was 15 years old, she went roaming about the palace, exploring one room after another. At last she came to a little room at the top of the tower. There was an old woman. Kitty cat fell over. Sorry. Sat there, an old woman sat busily spinning, as she had never heard of the king's proclamation. "Good day, Granny," said the princess. "What are you doing?" "I am spinning, my pretty lass," said the old woman. "Would you like to try it?" "Oh, yes," the princess cried, but when she caught at the whirling spindle, it pricked her hand. She fell back in a faint. The old woman, greatly alarmed, cried for help. People came running from all sides. "Oh no, this girl just passed out." She got a pretty dress though. Look at the pretty design down there. But yeah, the spindle is what the thread is joined on there, so you can spin thread. The king and queen knew at once the fairy's evil wish had been fulfilled. They had the princess carried to a room deep in the heart of the palace and laid on a bed decked with green and gold covers. It's an interesting detail. The king sadly commanded that she be left to sleep in peace until the hour of her awakening had come to pass. Now the wise fairy, whose quick wit had saved the life of the princess, knew what had happened and came at once in her swan chariot. Oh, that she's riding a swan that has no legs. Interesting. Well, I guess they do have their legs tucked in when they're flying usually, huh? She touched with her wand everything and everybody about the palace, except the king and queen. She touched the governesses and the ladies in waiting, the gentlemen, the officers, the stewards, cooks, guards, and pages. Oh, what's she doing? What's she doing? As she touched them, they all fell asleep, not to waken until their mistress should wake and need them to attend her. Oh, look, he was even in the middle of spooning something out of a bowl. Down he went. Sleepy, sleepy, sleepy. The king and queen kissed their daughter and left the hushed palace. The king issued a new proclamation, forbidding anyone to approach its gates. But such laws were not needed, for soon a hedge of thorny shrubs grew around the palace grounds. They became so thick and high that neither beast nor man could force a way through. The castle itself was hidden. Only the top of the tower could be seen from a distance. Ooh. Interestingly, a lot of Mayan cities are like that. They're covered in nature. There's other places too in South America and other places that all have that going on. They're pretty cool. One On the day that the 100 years ended, the son of a king then reigning was a-hunting, and he spied the tower beyond the forest. He asked what it was. An old peasant told him of the legend of the sleeping princess and of the king's son who was to awaken her. From the way the prince's heart began beating, he felt certain the peasant spoke the truth. He knew that he was the king's son who would waken the princess. He set out at once. The great trees and thorns opened of their own accord to let him pass, and at last the castle stood before him. Again, his gorgeous horse. Like always, like, oh, I'm an old peasant man, see over there. He entered the courtyard and saw men and animals in deep slumber. The prince crossed the court and mounted the stairs. He went to the very heart of the palace, where, in a beautiful room of gold, he saw the loveliest sight in the world, a sleeping princess, who, due to magic, was not covered in dust. Nope, everybody's clean. So fair, she seemed an angel. He fell on his knees beside her and kissed her lovely cheek. The princess opened her eyes and smiled and said, "Is it you, my prince? I have waited long." I wonder, what kind of dreams she had. What do you think? Do you remember your dreams when you wake up? I wonder if she does. They talked for hours and still had not said half that was in their hearts to say. Meanwhile, everything in the palace waked with the princess, and everyone took up his task just where he had left it. At nightfall, a lady in waiting curtsied to the princess and announced the wedding feast. Oh, okay. I guess that's how that works. Then the king's son led his bride to the royal chapel where they were married. The next morning, the bridegroom and bride left the palace and passed through the dark forest into the bright sunshine of the world beyond. And when the princess turned to look at the castle where she had slept so many years, behold, castle and forest had vanished. What happened to all the people who she lived with? Oh, I guess we just don't care about those people. So the princess rode with her prince to his father's court, and they lived a life as happy as her dream. Well, I guess that's a simple way to wrap it up. I like her wedding gown. It's got a pretty kind of cape going on there. So, that's Sleeping Beauty. I personally am not a huge fan of it. I always like sleeping. That was my favorite part. The swan's really pretty. And I love the clothes, for the ladies at least. Great flowing fabric and colors. What was your favorite part? Do you have a favorite part? I like the bad-tempered fairy. She's not even evil. She just has a bad temper and she's causing trouble. Alright. She's got moxie, that one. Well, thank you for listening, and you have a great day.